I love this. All right, ladies, we are here today with Lori Howard from Pinch Me Provence, which I even love the sound of that name. So I'm super excited to have this discussion about not only like being in Provence, traveling to Provence, which she has a tour company, but it's doing something different as we age. Being over 60 and saying yes to passion and turning that into profits and purpose. So I'm super excited to be here with Lori. We've got Kirsten on the call, who is now in Germany on her way to Kathmandu next week.
Wow.
Kirsten has a business called Bike and Soul, Journeys to the Heart, where she takes women through Nepal and around Kilimanjaro on motorcycle tours. So the two of you have something in common, totally kind of different, but interesting nonetheless. And then there's Lillian, who was kind enough to introduce both Lori and I, which is so exciting. And then Lorelei, which, we've been hanging out together for the past few years anyway. So there we go. Here we are with today's discussion of Provence. Pinch Me Provence, and how this came about. So you decide all of a sudden, did it happen all of a sudden, Lori? Like, did you just wake up one day and go, I think I can do this?
No, it was long in the making and the brewing. It was the longest cup of tea in my life. At 11, my mom took us to Switzerland, and us, meaning the family, my family, brothers and sisters are much older. So I was very impressionable and young, and we spent a summer learning French, as an 11-year-old could. And I was determined at 11 years old to go back and do my junior year abroad in college. Whatever an 11-year knows about that, I don't know. So I chose my college when I was in high school to go back to France, and did a year in France in 1979-80 for my junior year abroad.
There was a lot going on politically everywhere at that time.
I had an Iranian friend on my program whose parents were ousted with the Shah, and she couldn't leave the country. Very interesting to see someone who was just blocked completely. So you're right. It was politically pretty hot.
Yeah. My husband defected from Poland during that time because the Solidarity movement happened, and he and his brother went to Australia, and he went to the US where I met him. So yeah, there was a lot going on around the world, as there is today. As there is today.
Just took classes and fell in love with a Frenchman. So there you go. I was a little disconnected from everything that was going on in the world. And then bake that in 30 years later. I did my life, he did his life. And I got an email 29 years later of, "Do you remember me?" And so that was the initiating of my dream to eventually live in France somehow, to the possibility of really living in France. And so that's how the tea was steeped over the years.
I don't know about you ladies, but I think that there's a movie here. Like seriously, there's not enough, and you could even play the part. You kind of look like Diane Lane anyway from Under the Tuscan Sun.
Oh, great. Yeah, my daughter wants to play my role because she's convinced she could do the young me and the old me right now. So she's like, sell it fast, Mom.
There you go. All right. Well, I'm buying anyway. I'll go see that movie. So just,
That is a beautiful movie. Go watch that. I can see that coming.
Yeah. So anyhow, at 56, we were dating in my early 50s, and then I actually, we dated for about 6 years, with 3 trips to see each other a year and FaceTime every day. And then I lost 3 or 4 friends to cancer. And I said, what am I doing? Why am I dating someone on a telephone? Why am I in my big house where I'm going to the bathroom in 3 bathrooms every day, just to keep plumbing running, because my daughter was off doing her life in another state. And so I quit my job and sold the car and gave the dog to my daughter and sold my house and moved to France. So I have not looked back a moment.
So let's talk about, because my husband and I did a similar thing where we sold everything. It was for health reasons, but we sold everything and bought a one-way ticket. And let's talk about what was, you get on the plane, you no longer have any connections, physical, tangible connections other than your family, your daughter. What's the thought when you're getting on the plane? Anxiety or excitement?
It's so funny that you asked that, and we didn't prep this. That was not a question you asked me before.
It wasn't.
I went to LA. So I went west from Arizona to Los Angeles to take the big long flight over. It was just easier to do an overnight flight that was as long as possible. And my mom, for me, is the moon. My mom passed away years ago, and she's super present for me in the moon all my life. And it was a full moon night, and that moon stared at me in the window and followed me all the way to the Atlantic. And it was phenomenal. So, Mary, for all of the trepidation I had, for the 9 suitcases I had, because I brought my entire life with me, it was cheaper to put it aboard. Felt very déraciné, as the French say, so unrooted, uprooted. And this message of comfort and validation, I did cry a bit. There were a few tears shed of excitement, of grief, of unknown. But I could not have been more supported. And she's been present in my, my ability to get everything just fell in line when I came here. I met friends miraculously, and I just knew she was pulling those strings from heaven. She was just my little marionette support. So whether that's a silly way of looking at it, that's what supported me.
I mean, seriously, I can't believe that you told me that story or told us that story and didn't cry telling it. Like I could cry.
No, there's such joy in all of it that I just feel so blessed that she's right there with me. So, but I have an amazing support system, and I had a little bracelet I wore that said "Be brave" for the entire year. It's 365 days. I promised myself I'd look down at my wrist and see "Be brave." So I had a couple little things that I did as touchstones.
Fabulous. Lorelei, did you have a question?
All right, sorry.
There it is.
Sorry, I apologize. But what I wanted to say is, when I heard Lori tell that story and Mary say about crying, you know what? I think that I kind of label, I do the same thing. My mom's in a wind chime, and when the wind, I know she's talking to me. And like she said, the strings, pulling strings. But I kind of think, being with Mary about a year ago when we did this picture board, I think she was trying to get us in touch with our intuition, like, what's right. Like Lori sold her house and, moved and stuff. But I really like that kind of like the mom, because my mom's kind of she's gone, and she's kind of in my life too. And I don't know, how touching. I don't know. I guess part intuition, but part, you're grounded with your mom, So I enjoyed that story.
Oh, thank you.
So let's you brought up something else. Sorry to deviate from our setup questions. This kind of happens. Let's talk about support systems. So here we are in midlife and beyond, because what I learned recently is midlife only goes to 60.
Ooh, that's a shame.
Yeah. Yeah. Now for those of us that are over 60, we're in the golden years. Right? Like
Lillian's laughing.
I mean, I don't know about that, but that doesn't quite set with me. So anyway, let's talk about how important support systems are. And where do you go to find them? You're in a foreign country. what happens?
First off, I have a firm belief that you have support systems because you are a support system. So first off, in my opinion, you need to be that base that you provide for others in order for others to be that base for you. So that's one thing. And that I learned from my mom. She never met a friend she released if she liked them. They were in her life forever. And I have done the same. In France, and as I did when I was in France at 20, and now when I came in 2015, I just made myself a promise I would not speak with anyone that spoke English for 5 years. At that time, I said goodbye to all of my American friends, and I just sat alone in the cafeteria in college until somebody talked to me, because I know the French. And if you don't make yourself available, and if you remain, all the Brits who remain with the Brits and the Americans who remain with the Anglos, the French write you off. So you have no hope of being integrated into society unless you make that effort. So, it's in America, we're like, oh, it's fascinating. You have an accent. Let's talk to you. No, the French are like, no, thanks. So I did that. And I had one friend who lived here, an older friend, a friend of my mom's, who I called. She happened to live near me. She introduced me to her whole walking group. I fell into a group that all their husbands were Rotarians, and I was Rotarian. So I joined a Rotary Club. So I think the whole associative organizational life as well. And that fed me jobs, that fed me relationships. But then I worked it, I cultivated it, I was honest with it, I didn't use it. I gave as much as it gave back to me.
I will tell you, that's such an important topic that I hear over and over again, that women feel, I hear this all the time, like women feel invisible. And I have to say, I feel like women feel invisible or are invisible because that's a choice. I think that really, I really do believe this with all my heart. I really do believe that your next best friend is out there looking for you. And all you need to do is I said this to my husband today. I follow a woman who does security tactics for women who travel alone. And she's always talking about, keep your head on a spigot, keep your head on a spigot, always searching, always searching. That's the same way I feel about finding a support system, finding your next best friend, because there are so many people out there, especially women our age, that are coming out of retirement or going into retirement. Their children have left them, sometimes relationships, and also with a spouse or a significant other, and then they lose their footing and almost hibernate or take themselves away from society. And I do believe that that's a choice. And when that happens, we then get to play the victim instead of getting to look at life through the lens of passion and purpose, where we can volunteer. There's like a plethora of things that any one of us can do depending on what we're interested in. And I love how you talked about, God, that's ballsy. Let me tell you, could I say I'm not going to speak anything but Polish for the next 5 years? I think my discussions would be really short. Okay.
Well, and that could be. I had a base of language, but
right.
But my husband worked nonstop, so he was not going to be my calling card to meeting people. He was not engaged in our community. He was in a grocery store management position, left at 5 a.m., got home at 7 p.m., ate dinner, went back to work. So when I started making friends and meeting people and whatnot, Pascal just giggled at me. And I said, well, I can't make you my social life because that's not fair. You've had 56 years of life before me. For me to come here and sit on a couch and cry and have you have this long day and come home to a sad wife, that's just not going to happen. And he laughed and he said, I never would have married you had that been the case. He said, I knew you'd be a self-starter. I knew you'd jump into life. I knew you'd get to know Provence better than I know Provence. So, there's that as well, that I think each other. And he knew I wasn't going to be a drag on and make him create my social life. So
that's super. So tell me about, does anybody have a question, by the way, before I go into rattling another question off to her? Okay. All right, super. If you do, just interrupt. So you were an employee all of your life, and you go to Provence, of all places, and see an opportunity. Was it a calling? Was it an itch that wouldn't go away? Was it a knowing? What was it that said, I got to do this?
You move to a place like Provence and your phone rings off the hook and you have more visitors than you ever want in your first 4 years, and you don't know how to say no to friends and family, that support system that you have. So in essence, for me, the first 4 years I lived there, we had 45 groups of family and friends who visited. And I just fell into being the consummate hostess and developing itineraries and taking people on, day trips, and we'd visit. They were coming to see me and they were coming to see Pascal, but they wanted to see Provence. So I fell into this tour guide thing in a very loving way, although I was making breakfast, lunch, and dinner and changing beds and everything else with it. So you don't see a chambre d'hôte behind me. So right before COVID, the year before COVID, I looked at my husband and said, it's been 4 years. We're on year 5, 6 now. And, this is going to calm down. I'm not going to have everybody coming back twice. The main friends who I love have come. I think I could do this. This has been fun. I could do this professionally. And I'd really made quite a bit of a relationship with a lot of wineries and just places I visited frequently and off the beaten path, places that I love to kind of go around the tourists. And so I was passionate about Pinch Me Provence. I just felt like every day I said, pinch me, I can't believe I live here and this is my life. So the name came to me one day and I told my husband, and we jumped online to get the domain name. And I have to admit, I Googled it first because if porn showed up, I was scared to buy the domain name. I thought, if I start a business with Pinch Me in it and it Googles very badly, it can be the end of me. So it didn't. It was a good name. And I developed the website and had some of my Rotary, Lillian and I were Rotarians together. I had some of my Rotary Exchange students who are, big and strong in the digital world help me do my website. And I launched it January of 2020 and COVID hit. So I had a slow start, but COVID actually, once we got out of confinement, really gave me the ability to kick the tires and get to go to places in Provence that I hadn't been to without any tourists and get to know things. And so, you see the silver lining. And then as things opened up over the last 3 years, it's gotten busy, good word of mouth, friends of friends, people hitting my website, and so it's developed in a good pace. But you're right. It's I've never been an independent business owner, and it's just me, and I love it.
Well, there you go. For those of you that are sitting on the fence about doing something, going somewhere, here's a perfect example of what the opportunity, right? I say in Poland, my first trip to Poland was in 1994. My husband and I were just married, and he wanted to bring me over here with our collective family, our collective daughters, and introduced me to his family. And when I came to Poland, it was just after the wall had fallen, right? Just after communism ended in Poland. And I came over here and I thought, oh my God, there is so much work to be done. These people don't know anything about capitalism. They don't know customer service. They don't I just saw that I looked at Poland as a piece of Swiss cheese, that all I needed to do was do something. And it was, it was there for me. And I still see that in Poland to some degree. So when people tell me that they don't know what to do, I'm constantly thinking about go back to when you were a kid. What did you love to do when you were a kid? Because that's still there. And or what do people come to you for? People are going to hang around you for different reasons. And those different reasons offer you a doorway into something that could grow into an amazing, I'm not going to say golden year for sure, but an amazing second half of our lives. And Lori, when we were on a call the other day, we talked about side hustles. Like, you don't have to throw in the towel and throw caution to the wind and make this your everything. You can start it as a side hustle and flush it out and see if you love it once you start it.
And the beauty, Mary, is that this is an intellectual property type of business. So there isn't a huge investment. Your investment in starting a website is small and carrying it along. Your investment is really in your relationships and then the passion you put into it. And God loves social media, because that really has been a way, at least for me with Facebook, to connect with all my friends. And that's been one of my support systems since I've been here. Instagram now connects me with my nieces and nephews and a lot of my friends, but a younger generation. And so aside from the business aspect of trying to, promote things, it really has just been my life way of connecting and communicating. And it's easier. I used to send 30 postcards a month when I first moved here. I had a whole spreadsheet of sending everybody a postcard because I'm a real snail mail girl and I love it. But honestly, since COVID, it's all been replaced by social media, but we can be very interactive. So I think looking at marketing and the daunting aspects of, oh my gosh, it's going to cost me a lot to start a business, depending on what that business is, if it's not bricks and mortar and employees, it's feasible.
Right. It's your time. And even though there are things that you have to learn how to operate a website. You have to learn how to do social media. You have to learn how to put yourself out there. Those are skills that are learnable. It's not just for some people. It's if you want it, then there are people out there that will share their expertise with you, as well as places to go for free to get at least some of the information that you need to start moving forward. You never have to go it alone. I guess is what I'm saying. I've never felt like I've had to do this alone.
No, and I did a little bit of barter. A girlfriend of mine is in design. She lives in California, but has a house in Provence. So she did my logo and everything for me, and business cards. And I did itineraries for her Airbnb, and so then, the website thing was also something that someone helped me with. So I did get lucky that my network supported it. And then they get paid back too in services and things. So
yes, of course.
It's in good food. I like to cook for them, right, Lillian?
The other thing that we talked about the other day, which is something that I think many women struggle with and don't know how to either have a conversation about it or understand it or don't know how to come out of frustration about it is the difference between men and women in retirement. How there are many women in my Facebook group, for instance, where, we're all in this age group, and they find themselves either about to retire or have already retired, or their husbands have retired, or significant other, and they don't want to do the same thing. The husband is like, oh, we got this great big house, and you've always wanted a great big house, and we need to stay here, and the wife is like, I've been cleaning this great big house forever. I'm done cleaning this great big house. I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to downsize. I'm ready to buy plane tickets. I'm ready to do something, but not this. Talk to me about your experience.
For me, I feel like I jumped out of my career 10 years too early. So I did definitely exchange a salary for my heart. And I called my daughter because she had to help make that decision, because I said, if mommy mismanages her money, she's on your doorstep at 80. So, help me make this decision, because I could be crazy. And so I gave myself a real gift by giving myself this jump, this investment in time and a new country and a new marriage and new friends and everything. And so the interesting juxtaposition is that as I'm launching my business, my husband is now retired. So we are at a difference in speed in our days. And this is the first summer where it really hit. He just retired in January. And I was busy all summer, and he is home kind of figuring out the new rhythm. But God love him, he's been very supportive. So there hasn't been any, oh my gosh, you're busy, you should be on my time frame. We have to have lunch together every day. A lot of the French are very familial, and we laugh and just say we're the most independent married people on the planet. So we're really good with, I'm not here today. Okay, have fun, or let's do something today. Okay, let's do it. So I'm lucky in that the rhythm of retired and going back into working is okay in my relationship. And then we're going to, as you know, Mary, I did buy a house a few years ago in Arizona, have rented it. So now what we're going to do is go back there and be snowbirds and live 6 months in the winter in Arizona, and then be back here for the Provence season in the summer. And always have nice weather. Very selfish of us. And we'll see, interestingly enough, if he adapts to living in America as easily as I've adapted to living in France. Jury's out. We'll see.
Yeah, that in itself is interesting. My husband and I kind of did the opposite. I moved to his country, right? He had been in America for 30 some odd years, is an American citizen as well as a Polish citizen. And then we decide to move to his country, which he didn't want to do because he grew up here. He grew up remembering communism and what happened to his family and didn't want any part of this. But I felt very at home here. It's very much like Maine. It's very, the same floral flowers and trees and mountains and lakes and sea. And so there was something about it that felt familiar, other than the age of all the buildings and the history. But when we came to Poland, I knew that if I was going to make this journey successful, that was up to me. And it was like, even, like the first week, once we get settled into our apartment, after I was able to take care of my health issue, the first thing that I did was start seeking girlfriends, because I knew that I needed that support group, and I wanted to have women, not only my friends in America, but I knew that I needed that female support group. And it was interesting that my husband, even though this is his country, and he went to high school and university here. He didn't feel that same calling, and it was me that almost had to push him into, don't you have some friends that you can go play with? Like, like I'm okay. I'll manage. I'll fumble along. But don't you have something you need to go do today? Like, can't you go? He was on the Polish national track team, and we live next to the university now where the track is, where he used to practice. I'm like, can't you go like volunteer there? I'm sure like somebody wants to talk to you. And he, in making friends, I've been the lead. So that I didn't expect at all. That was an interesting juxtaposition for me, because I thought that he would be off, like playing, and instead he it's like, I'm not complaining, because he's certainly made me feel at home here. But it was something that I wasn't prepared for at this stage. So I found that interesting. Oh, all right, Lillian, you haven't said a thing. I know that you've got so much to say.
I will make it brief. I believe that I'm older, so based on that conversation about what was midlife. Well, I turned 71 in July. And to embrace a new relationship, move again, I'm looking at this as, okay, this might be the final chapter, but I'm going to make it a full one. Now, do I consider myself retired? Yes, because I have not created another business to make money, but I am redesigning my life, not only in relationship, but a new iteration of being an artist. So when you talked about anxiety or anticipation and excitement, yes, to all of them. The good news is the older I get, the more I can embrace all of those different feelings. And when I went to Provence in Paris last year, I went really open heart, open mind. I was ready for anything, to move, to meet love, who knew? And I had met Al before that. We stayed in contact. We both survived the hurricane. What I find is the older I get, the more open I am to this, to finding the people, and now to start all over again in a new city, to find a support system, to maintain, and I've been good at this, maintain the friendships, the highlighted people in my life that really filled my heart, filled my mind, stimulated me. And that's why, even after all these years, Mary, I feel like there's been no time elapsed, even though we lost track of each other.
Yeah.
Same thing with Lori and I. So life can be grand, and I can hear that with Al. I might end up saying that to him, is, don't you have some place to play? Because I need to be on this Zoom call. But more will be revealed, and that's just fine with me. So it's a wonderful time. I don't know that the English language has a word better than retirement, because I have never considered myself retired. Mm-hmm. I just don't work for a living anymore.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that word. I was listening to a podcast the other day, but he has a new show out on Netflix, 100 Years of Life or something. It's about finding the blue zones, where the people in those blue zones generally live up to and over 100 years of age, and he's past 20 years he's been researching what's their secret, like how come everyone's not living to 100. And he talks about the Japanese don't have a word for retirement. Their word is ikigai. And ikigai is community. It involves community, but it involves doing more of the thing that brings you joy. So that could be gardening. It could be teaching, children, upbringing, whatever it is, finding that thing that brings you joy and doing more of that. And so I find it interesting that in America we have this word retirement, which in a sense implies that we're put out to pasture. There's no more to us. We have nothing else. We are retired. We're tired. Right? And I just am not in the belief that that's true. I'm finding more and more women like Lori, like Lillian, like Kirsten, Lorelei, you're a great example too. And you are on your way, Kira. She's going to turn 60 this year. She'll soon be joining the club. So,
Mary, it's interesting.
I want to be in it.
All right, welcome. You mentioned retired, and I've been trying to sort of peel that word apart. And it's when we retire to our room, we pull back and go into hiding. In essence, is what the word means. So I think we all need to call it relaunching. I'm relaunched.
Relaunched.
Because that is pushing forward rather than pulling back.
Yes. It is a rebirth. It is a rebirth. Back when I was living in Arizona, I did some work as a birth doula, and it was incredible to be with women in that moment in time when they're most afraid, and they have no idea what to expect, and they're having out of body experiences and just want to get out of their bodies, and it's all it and I think that starting a side hustle, relaunching yourself can be, if you allow it, can be as painful as a birth. If you allow it. It doesn't need to be. This doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to look like what somebody else is doing. So how, Lori, talk to me about how not comparing yourself to anybody else, how keeping yourself on you. Like, how did you do that? How did you stop looking around and seeing what everyone else is doing? Or maybe you did and decided to do something different. Talk about that.
I'm not one to look around and see what other people are doing without that being learning. So there's learning and comparing. So I've never had a comparison or an envy or anything like that. I think I've just always been driven to be on my own path. And when I'm looking around, it's like, ooh, who fell in that hole? I want to avoid that. Oh, who jumped over that mountain? How did they do that? Is this a collaboration we can create? And maybe that all sounds Pollyanna, but that's me. Call me Pollyanna. I looked around during COVID, which was the time to talk to the Americans who were in the travel industry, to talk to the Australians, the Brits, the people who had come to service that Anglo group, lots of, and French as well. But that's when I opened up and really looked around to make a lot of relationships. And so really this developing the business has been really inspiring for me too, because I've learned I am gutsy enough to go in and meet, winemakers and do a lot of women-owned business things. So some of my tours, I've done a women and wine tour where every single day we go and meet with a woman, or she and her sister, who are fifth generation of this winery or this pottery shop or this soap factory. So also, my journey's been very female based. We are helpful as a gender. We're less competitive. We want to float the boat with everyone. And so I've stepped into my own competitive environments with people. But for the most part, it's been very collaborative, very partnership oriented. And that was my vision board that I did last year. I've got a wonderful group that Lily and you had a chance to be with us for our Creative Connections, kind of a women networking group here in my own town. Women from 28 to 78. It's a great span of life, of career, and we did vision boarding. And my big thing that year was build relationships, create partnerships. And that's, I think, going to be my next development of enriching the experience for my guests, is the more partnerships I can create. So it's not just me yakking at you. It's also bringing in these experts or visiting these artists that make that experience of what is Provence, not a tour book, not a, an experience with a ticket, but more of really looking at how people live, how people create, what is that authenticity of Provence. So for me, it's fun. I went out the other day and went to synagogues and learned kind of the Jewish history of Provence, because I just thought I don't know it. And so I went to 2 or 3 towns and dug in to another side of Provence that I don't know. And my husband says it's guide with a mission. He goes, so you're not working today. Are you guide with a mission? He's like, now what are you going to find out? And I'm like, you're right. There's a stone I haven't turned over yet. So I'm a little bit of my own creation of a monster, I think.
Go ahead, Lorelei.
I was thinking about that when Lori was talking a little bit about introducing her business to us. And I thought, it's kind of interesting for her, or for me, but for her to like maintain those relationships with the soap factory gal or the vineyard. It's almost like, she knows not to overstep, like she takes good care of them. She brings them, whatever chocolate, or I don't know, she takes good care of them so that she can continue to bring her gals there. And I guess it's a fine line, because you don't want to like abuse your friends, that you're bringing your group to, But
well, no, I mean, these are business owners, so I'm promoting their businesses. When we go to a soap factory or pottery factory, definitely they'll sell their wares, and they want that. You're right, but I like the smaller, more independent business owner, or the long-term historical group that's been there. My grandfather's great-great-grandfather started it in 1830, and there's a Marius Fabre is a soap factory, Marseille Soap. And they actually have like a syndicate, a union that, they were having so much ripoff of Marseille soap that they got all together as the soap makers, and they stamped their soap with 72% olive oil. And I mean, it's been this big thing for 150 years of creating it. Well, anyway, I brought my group in, 6 women, just to meet and have the great granddaughters who are running it talk to us. She was as honored to speak to our group as I was as honored to be there hearing what she had to say. And that's unique, because I think the French might not always meet on that level. And she was really interested. She's like, you're not here just to spend money in the boutique. You're really here interested in our story. And so I like to think my tours as some storytelling too.
I'd like to jump in here, because having experienced this, because Lori does all of her connections and makes friends with all of these people, when I was part of a group that went in with her, it wasn't like she was passing on the group to the tour guide in the facility. This was we were being welcomed as guests to a friend of the owner. And it changes the whole atmosphere. You just feel so free and comfortable. And I think that that's what enhances the experiences. You're no longer a tourist, you're a guest in someone's place. And it was wonderful.
Thank you.
Speaking of that word,
I'm
tourist.
sorry, and that goes back to the building the support system. It's both a business and a personal support system, which I think has worked for me, and I know it's worked for others.
The word tourist. What do you call yourself something? I know we don't, I don't like to label myself, but I've had people actually say, oh, you're an expat, you hate America. And I'm like, actually, no, I'm a big proponent of America. I do workshops for the US Embassy. I do workshops at the American Chamber of Commerce. Like I'm around, like I support my American counterparts a lot. Do you call yourself something? If somebody says, oh, you're an American, are you an expat? Are you a immigrant? Are you a refugee? Are you a tourist? Like what
for me?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and interesting. I mean, when you went to tourist, I serve tourists, but I call them my guests because I do think as a tourist, we're guests in another country. So I also try to impart with my guests that attitude of you won't be able to have a hamburger at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and get butter on your bread and, eat everything and walk around with a coffee in your hand because there's no walking coffees in my little town. So I believe guest embodies a lot. Guest embodies an invited person. Guest embodies we respect where we are. So, but for me, I jumped in as someone's wife, a Frenchman's wife, and so I just jumped out of any stereotype and figured I live here. I'm a Loire-Marinoise. I'm une petite Française américaine. But now I am a French person. So when they say she's an American, and I'll be like, no, I have my French passport too.
Bravo, bravo.
Yeah. But no, I think guest to me is the best term I can use because I don't want to feel that I'm taking around tourists. I take around guests. And maybe there's another word. So I'm open to everybody's ideas.
Considering what so many people say about their time, especially in Paris, I guess that the French were so rude. I have never experienced that myself. I love going to France, but I think that if more people actually viewed themselves as a guest, then those stereotypes might disappear. Lorelei, what's up?
Oh, I wanted to say that I work with a lot of young gals, 30, 40. They have kids, husbands, big cars, and it's so delightful. But as she was talking about the granddaughter in the soap factory telling the history or the stamp with the olive, whatever, I thought to myself, well, maybe that's our purpose, is to carry on the history of the past generations. Just like she told me the history, now I'm going to tell my dad, who's 91, how cool it was that the factory stamped their soap to, So maybe that's our purpose, is to hand off or to listen to a history and then hand it off to young people so that it won't be forgotten,
There's a great quote, I think it's by Picasso, actually, that says, your job through life is to find your gift and give it away. And so I think that you are right, Lorelei. I think that as I say all the time, that we don't have to go through life as a bull in a china shop. That if we allow things to unfold as they are supposed to, as we grow into them, then life can be pretty beautiful. And in that beauty, you begin to uncover those gems that are you. And those gems kind of overflow and makes it so that you don't want to hold on to it. Like, I can't stop this. I can't stop talking. My daughters maybe would probably like me to, I don't know, play more of a grandmother role or something. I don't know, but I can't do this. I can't, this is an itch that won't go away. And I think that there's that itch in all of us. And as long as we don't compare ourselves to others, and as long as we understand that we as human beings are all unique, you had a life of experiences that no one can take away from you, and that you survived, you're here. And those experiences will help someone else overcome something. And you may never know what that something is. But unless we begin to share, unless we begin to open up, unless we begin to get comfortable with who we are at our essence, all we have is pushing against. But sharing these gifts that we have naturally is about allowing, finding the passion that ends up into purpose, or it can be the other way around. Understanding your purpose that then becomes your passion. No way, I think, is more right than the other, because of the fact that we are all unique. But I think that you are right in that, Lorelei, that there is something that you have about you that the world needs to hear. Kirsten, you unmuted yourself.
Oh, just that was a while ago. So
Sorry.
No, that was just, I thought it was really inspiring listening to Laurie talking about. So what I heard actually was a lot of community-based activities and really connecting, and I think that's what a lot of people actually are really after. So I'm trying to do the same when I take people to Nepal, because this is where I lived a long time, where I speak the language, and I have the feeling that people come, though it's very small now, the first group that I'm taking, but it's that because I've lived there for so long, and same as you, Laurie, speak French and I speak Nepali, so I can open doors where other people can't open doors. And I think just coming out of these 3 years of this madness, Corona and COVID and stuff, and everything is even faster. And we this internet, this plastic world, and everything is so cold and sterile in a way. And then we find places like yours where we go to places where you really connect and you can really show people. But this is how people live. And I think that's something that's going to sell in future, hopefully, as long as we can travel. But I find that really inspiring. So yeah, hope to see you in France one day, in Provence, and get to know some of your French men and women.
So I agree with you, Kristen, and you used a word activity, and it's true. I think you and I give experiences. So we've always been looking at activities for a tour, or for our vacations. What are we going to do every day? But it is that, how do you take an activity and make it an experience? That is what I try to offer. And it sounds like you do exactly the same.
Yeah, I think maybe more rather than planning for it, it's sort of, I'm interested in those roadside happenings, or just let things evolve. And if you go to a place like Nepal, for example, there is a likelihood you would come into a village and there's a wedding happening, and then you just divert your tour and you just maybe try and stay and just have people, that's not planned. So activity is one thing, but more like, let's see what happens on the road, along the roadside, little villages, and you may run into something that's really unique that you haven't thought of. And so for me, it's less the planning, it's more we go to villages, we connect with people, we go look up, women-based community organizations, whatever, and see what comes out of it. And maybe that's going to be really surprising, and who knows what's going to happen on the next trip. So I kind of like that, just have a bit of flexibility, and don't overplan, but give us some space when we arrive, and just let's see what happens.
Let's build that in, Mary.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, for those of you that haven't gotten on this understanding yet, Lori and I are going to be firming up details on doing a Pinch Me Provence trip come next year. And so we'll keep you posted on that date because I'm really excited about it. Kira, so we haven't heard from you yet. Why you here? Why was this of interest to you?
Uh, uh, as a whole, the whole concept of taking charge of your next, not being so passive. I'm just coming out of a period of life that was really busy, but it was busy with other people's stuff. And I'm looking towards my time. So I know that takes some planning. I tend to be relatively passive, but I don't want to be anymore. So I know that's going to take some action on my part, and I'm trying to build up a little tool chest, some bags for my trip forward, and I just find you and the conversations very inspiring. So that's why it was important to me. I'm already looking at my next. I'm trying to come out of what I'm doing business wise. I'm in business with my family, so it's hard to just not do that. And I'm just trying to prepare, enjoy right this moment, this very moment, enjoy it, but kind of begin to focus some of my attention on my path forward. So that's why I'm here today. And I got so many good, inspiring, wonderful pinches of, just life as I want it to be. So I thank everyone that did share because you enriched me today.
Super. Thank you for that. Lori, before we wrap this up, when we were talking, when we were talking the other day, we touched on the topic of confidence and looking at, are you different from us? How come you were able to do this? Did you, once you started down this path, was there anything that stopped you or made you fumble or made you think that you were, like, who are you to do this business? Talk to us about navigating negative self-talk, if there was any.
Again, Pollyanna is just way too present for me. I didn't see it as hard. I saw it as an extension of what I was offering to my family and thought, and I get stupid, if you build it, they will come. I'm just going to create 2 or 3 trips this year. And, one of my trips, I had a 7-bedroom home that I signed up for and 2 people came. So I almost went underwater on that trip. And so, there are things that you look back and go, ooh, that was a boastful mistake. So I'll do Airbnbs now that have an out clause just in case a tour doesn't sell or something, which I haven't had the experience since. But there's always some missteps where you have a little misgiving in the middle of it and you learn from that. But maybe I don't go far enough out on the limb to put myself at too much risk. And that's something I always felt was a shortcoming of mine, was whenever I was in business, I always wanted to be the second name on the list when the building burned down. Like, I will manage everything as if it's my own, but I just somehow didn't want to be the top dog because I slept better at night. So I always felt a little bit of, the vice president, not the president, the director, not the managing director kind of person. And I second guessed myself on that throughout my life, but I knew my comfort zone of how far out on the branch to go. And so maybe this business creation didn't feel like I was going too far out on that branch. I was still in a comfortable spot. And maybe that's where that second guessing doesn't happen as much, because I kind of take myself as far as I think I'm safe. And maybe for others, that's I'm flying out there, because they're not safe where I am. But then I look at other women too who have launched completely, and I think, oh my gosh, I'm not that brave. So you never know. I guess it's perspective.
Oh, that's such a great word. That is such a great word, that we have a choice of the lens that we look through. And we always have a choice. It doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter the situation. You do have a choice as what pair of glasses you choose to put on that way. You refer to yourself as Pollyanna. I always refer to myself as looking through my rose-colored glasses, even though I don't own a pair. I actually, it's something that I will purchase this year. I have promised myself that I'm going to get prescription rose-colored glasses so that I can wear them and be you don't think so, Kirsten, and be that person. Before we sign off, does anybody have a burning question that they've got, that while we have Lori here, that we need to address? Lorelei, there you go.
You got it.
Okay, sorry about that. My mom was always just like, like, okay, we're packing a suitcase and she's got 3, but we went to Solvang this weekend, and when you sat down on the toilet, they had this beautiful lavender vase, and it said "Live life simply," or something. I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. Here you're on the toilet, you see that. But anyhow, when Lori was talking about not going out too much on the limb, like if I was going there and being part of her group, I would feel very comfortable that it's very easy, that she's managed things. She hasn't gone overboard. And I just feel even if I was one of those 2, I feel very comfortable that she didn't have too many expectations, spent too much money. I'm just like life simple, like if you're going to have hamburgers, don't have hot dogs, just keep it simple, and I think that people will pick up instinctively on Lori's, okay, I'm comfortable, I don't expect anything. I haven't spent too much money, and we're all going to have a good time. Let's have a very simple, enjoyable. So I like it how she said she knows, how to sleep at night,
There you go.
Thank you, Lorelei. I have a lot of women who they're daunted by creating a vacation. They're daunted by the thought of driving here. They want to, and so it tends to be us. This 6 women is kind of the look of most of my tours. It has been. It's just a lot of women get together. Either they're married, they're not married, they've left a spouse at home or something, but they come and they just want someone else to take over that for them as a vacation. You figure out the driving, you figure out where we're going. We collaborate a little bit on the itinerary, so I make sure I hit everybody's bucket list a bit, so they have some investment in where we're going and the pace of the day. And but it's just that they kind of wake up in the morning and they even have day guidance on their itinerary of what to wear. Because I find that every night, I'm getting texts at midnight. What do I wear tomorrow? And I'm like, okay, it's on your itinerary. Those are the shoes. That's the, because it just makes life a little more easy when they don't have to think. They don't have to open a tour book. They don't have to think about anything. They know it's all done for them. So that's been my biggest, I guess, gift. And a lot of people do feel very babied and easy. They're not stressed. And sometimes when they come off of a holiday where they're going to another country, they come home as more stressed than they left. It's like a bad massage. You're thinking you're going in for a good massage and you can't come out, tighter than you were to begin with. So my goal is for people just to say, there's my suitcase of stress. It's at the door and I'm not going to look at it again.
I think that sounds great to me. Now you can grab to find out more about Lori and what she has to offer. Her website is Pinch Me Provence. Of course. I mean, just the name itself makes me want to hop on a plane and go. You can follow her on Facebook, Instagram too. All right, Lori?
Yes. So I don't know if you're pushing out the exact names, because it's not all just Pinch Me Provence. So the website is, but then you follow me, Lori Howard, on Facebook directly. There is a Pinch Me Provence Facebook. I don't post as much to it. I find it much less interactive as a business site. My personal site, I have a lot more communication. So, feel free either way. And then on Instagram, if you follow, it's Lori, Lori, Pinch Me Provence.
And all of that will be, once the recording comes out, there'll be links to everything so that you know where to find Lori. And Lori and I will keep the conversation going about our planned tour in France with her next year in 2024. So I'm really excited about that. We have a chance to actually plan this whole thing. So I'm very excited about that. Kirsten, you just unmuted yourself.
No, I just wanted to say I'm just waiting for the dates because I want to lock it in. I'm going to be there next year.
We will chat. And I want to send you a few recipes, Mary. I love to cook as well. So I'm going to send recipes to Mary that she can send off to you all. Just a few of my favorite Provence recipes, if that would be of interest to you.
Oh, my. Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Oh, yeah. So thanks, everyone, for being here. Again, this was Braving Midlife and Beyond discussions with Lori Howard of Pinch Me Provence. Next week's discussion is, let me see, I've got to open up my notes. Next week's discussion is with Linnell Wilson. We are going to talk about the in-between, which is relationships and being at the in-between and what happens in midlife when you decide that you need a change. So stay tuned for next week.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll see you soon.
Ciao, ciao. Bye.
Bye.